Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast brought to you by DraftKings Pick6. I am Mike Barner. He is Kirien Sprecher, and we come to you every Wednesday to help you win your fantasy basketball leagues. Kirien, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Let's get into it.
Yeah, unfortunately, no games yesterday, but a ton of injuries at the top of the show today. We're going to start out with one of the biggest news of the day yesterday. Joel Embiid has been suspended for 3 games because of his locker room altercation with a reporter. Magically, he has been medically cleared now from his injury, so his suspension will begin immediately. He will start serving that Wednesday, and it was reported yesterday he is expected to make his season debut November 12th against the Knicks. What do you think of this Embiid suspension? Healthy now, maybe play on November 12th. What do we think?
Yeah, I mean, what odd timing for him to magically be cleared to suit up again. I think a similar thing happened to Draymond when he was suspended last year too, where he was dealing with an injury and then all of a sudden he was healthy again. It makes sense. I think this is like actually good news for fantasy managers, right? Like you see the suspension out for 3 games, but it also like we finally have a return date and that he's going to play. We'll see how many games in a row that he actually plays. Shams has been pretty adamant that the situation is going to be fluid and that he's going to periodically sit out games. So still not like out of the dark yet with Embiid, but it sounds like you can at least put him into the lineup for at least 1 game next week.
Yeah, there's always the concern, maybe he has the suspension for 3 games, comes back and plays there on the 12th. Maybe he plays limited minutes, then he gets a game off. I mean, the moral of the story here, don't drop Andre Drummond. Now, second news of the day, this is actually some positive news for the 76ers. Paul George, he's back. He made his debut against the Suns. He played 32 minutes. He had 15 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and 1 3-pointer. He only shot 4 of 14 from the field, which included 1 for 7 from behind the arc. The 14 shot attempts with Embiid out, not exactly encouraging, but it was his first game back. But at least some good news for the 76ers, Kirien, that Paul George is back in the fold.
Yeah, and just before we move on from the Embiid thing, when he comes back, that's the first half of a double back-to-back set. So I'm assuming he's going to miss at least one of those games. I just wanted to look that up to make sure that it was accurate. But the 12th is like the first NBA Cup game for the Sixers, and then they play again the next night. So assuming Embiid would probably miss one of those. As for George, inefficient season debut, that's kind of to be expected. 6 turnovers, just shaking off some rust. Also, I don't know, I saw a video of him waving off Tyrese Maxey at the end of the game. Maxey had like 32 and was on fire. So like there's already maybe a little bit of that dynamic in there. I think Maxey should be like a point guard for this team when everyone's healthy. Embiid should be the go-to guy. And then Paul George, I know you bring Paul George in to be an upgrade over Tobias Harris, but Paul George should just play the Tobias Harris role better, in my opinion. We'll see what kind of player PG is. Given his usage without Embiid, it seems like when Embiid misses, he is going to be at least like an alpha, maybe alpha B to Maxey. So it'll be interesting, but like Embiid next week, at least he's in your lineup now.
Right, more superstar injury news. Giannis Antetokounmpo was out Monday against the Cavaliers with a hip injury. It was his first missed game of the season. The Bucks don't play again until Thursday against the Jazz. Then they play Friday against the Knicks. So we were talking about that back-to-back situation with Embiid. We're looking at a back-to-back situation for Giannis. The Jazz stink, even though they beat the Bulls the other day. The Knicks are good. So maybe we see Giannis sit that first half of a back-to-back there. Doesn't seem to be an overly serious injury for Giannis right now, but maybe we get a couple of missed games before he returns Friday. What do you think there, Kirien?
Yeah, I think you nailed it with that back-to-back situation again. It's not good news for Giannis. I don't want to sugarcoat it. He was playing through right patella tendonitis to start the season, so that seemed like a thing that was like he was just going to be probable and he'll keep continuing to play through it. But now he's dealing with an adductor strain. These things can be finicky with the Bucks struggling out of the gate. Like you would assume that they kind of want to push Giannis to play, but are they really going to like mortgage their future for like this 2-week stretch? The Eastern Conference is not good. The Bucks just only a couple of games out of being in a top 3 or 4 seed again. So I don't really think they need to push him. Like you said, I would assume he sits the first half and then he's back in action. Definitely concerning. In the meantime, like If Giannis misses another contest, Bobby Portis is the one that's going to see the most increased usage. But then my deeper league options would be Andre Jackson and AJ Green. They both saw a little bit of time after not really being part of the rotation and look good in Giannis's absence.
Another big man dealing with what we hope is a minor injury right now. Anthony Davis of the Lakers is day-to-day with an ankle injury. He's officially listed as questionable for Wednesday's matchup against the Grizzlies. He's been awesome. We talked about him a lot in the preseason about how last season was kind of a best-case scenario for him in terms of his health. He does have a checkered injury history. Little scared, not necessarily about this injury, but multiple injuries for Davis. What do you think, Kirien?
Yeah, I think the day-to-day thing is probably like gives me a little more confidence than Giannis's situation, where there hasn't really been much information about Giannis. At least the Lakers are saying that we aren't going to rule him out for a long time, whereas the Bucks just aren't saying anything. I think AD will, eventually miss time, whether it's this injury or the next injury. But for now, like, I'm not too worried about the situation.
Now, the Nuggets do have a situation to be worried about. Jamal Murray is dealing with a concussion, and the biggest news, Aaron Gordon is out for multiple weeks with a right calf strain. They're going to need more production from Michael Porter Jr. Murray has already been ruled out for Wednesday's game because of his concussion. That will be his third straight game miss. When he originally had the injury, Mike Malone said that it could be 5 to 7 days for him to be cleared. So it might take him a week to get back into action. But Kirien, what's your biggest take? I mean, Westbrook is the boost in value for however many more games that Murray missed. But what do you think about this Aaron Gordon injury?
Yeah, I think Murray, he was seen getting shots up and was playing like one-on-one. So like he's advancing through that concussion protocol. So, that 5 to 7 day thing probably is still intact for now. I would assume that he'll be back by the end of this week, hopefully next week. Peyton Watson is going to move into the starting lineup, in my opinion, for Aaron Gordon. But then Julian Strawther and Hunter Tyson are also deep league guys. Look, like the Nuggets' depth was already being tested, and now these young guys are going to have to play heavy minutes. So it's kind of just like throwing darts. Hopefully you hit a bullseye with one of these guys. They all have different skills, right? Strawther's a three-point shooter. Watson's like a defender. So if you're in a category league, you go after whichever stats you need. But Peyton Watson's probably the one guy to have with Gordon out for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, what you liked about Watson is he played 31 minutes against the Raptors on Monday. He had 16 points. The scoring is probably not going to be consistent, but he had 2 steals and 2 blocks. So like you said, if you're hunting those defensive numbers, and then, I hate to say this, but somebody on that team is going to have to score, and Russell Westbrook is not afraid to do that. The problem with him is he's shooting 28.8% from the field. That's gross, but he's someone to consider in deeper leagues. Now, this is going to be the first of at least 2 Bulls minutes in today's podcast. Zach LaVine sat out Monday against the Jazz with a hip injury. He's listed as questionable for Wednesday's game against the Mavericks. Big shocker. Zach LaVine's hurt again. When he missed the other game, Kobe White had 28 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, and 6 3-pointers. The Jazz defense stinks, but it was nice to see that juicy stat line from Kobe White. Now, we're going to try to keep our blood pressure down when we talk about injuries and Zach LaVine, but what do you think, Kirien?
Yeah, I mean, similarly to Giannis, LaVine had been playing through a left non-shooting shoulder sprain, and that seemed like it was going to be fine, and he was going to continue playing, and he was having above-average results. But now he is also dealing with an adductor strain. These things can be finicky, definitely concerning. And do the Bulls and LaVine have this understanding that all of the Bulls fan base has, that he needs to play, otherwise he's going to be stuck in Chicago and no one's going to be happy, us fans most of all. So I would assume that he tries to push through this, continue this hot start, build up that trade value. We'll see. I don't know. You mentioned Kobe White. I love Kobe White, but Ayo Dosunmu also has to get some love. He moved into the starting lineup. He's one of those multi-category guys that can really stuff the stat sheet when he's given 30-plus minutes, which he probably will be if LaVine misses extended time.
Yeah, if you're in a daily lineup league, Ayo Dosunmu is definitely someone that you should be considering. And he's also someone to keep in the back of your mind as the trade deadline approaches, because I'm sure the Bulls and LaVine would like to part ways eventually. So some more bad news. Jeremy Sochan of the Spurs has a thumb fracture in his left hand. He's going to have surgery this week. So he's going to be out for a while. He's actually had a very good season, averaging 15.4 points, 7.7 rebounds, and 3 assists a game. Who do you think here is going to be the big beneficiary of the Sochan injury?
Yeah, I'm just checking. We're still only in week 3, right? Because
this is insane.
It's getting ridiculous. I feel like everyone that I've heard, seen on Twitter, listened to on podcasts, everyone is saying Stephon Castle will be the big winner here. I would love that. I hope the Rook gets some run. But like realistically, I think Keldon Johnson probably gets the biggest boost. He's had the track record of being a starter, being a top guy for a struggling team. I think he probably has the most trust from Pop. Well, Pop's not really with the team right now, so that I probably shouldn't say that, but you know what I mean? Like within the organization, he's trusted. So I think Keldon Johnson gets a big boost. Also got to mention Devin Vassell is really close to making his season debut. So like it might just be a wash for fantasy managers. And then there's Julian Champagnie still is getting those minutes. But like it's if you make some threes, you get some good value. Otherwise, you're not really getting much out of them. So I think Keldon Johnson's probably the one guy that sees the biggest boost with the Sochan news.
Yeah, I do like Champagnie. He had 21 points against the Clippers on Monday. He's made at least 4 3-pointers in a game 2 times this season. He shot 36.5% from 3 last season. So like you said, his contributions in other areas might not be great. But if you're looking for points and threes, I think Champagnie is someone to target. And now we have to end this segment with some good news, because this has been doomsday with fantasy injuries. Stephen Curry is back for the Warriors. He had 24 points, 6 assists, and 4 3-pointers over 24 minutes against the Wizards on Monday. He has not played more than 27 minutes in a game yet this season. We may talk a little bit about that more later, Kirien, but some good news to end this segment. Steph Curry is back for the Warriors, and what a cushion of a landing spot against the Wizards too.
Yeah, absolutely. They planned that out perfectly. Curry back on the court is great for NBA fans. You mentioned a little bit, but what's happening in Golden State, I'm going to channel my inner Charles Barkley here, is terrible for fantasy basketball, right? Like this is just a little foreshadow for everybody's favorite segment later, but the minute distribution in Golden State is driving fantasy managers crazy right now.
Yeah, so now we're going to move on to talking about some players. Is it time to sell high on, or should we hold on to them for the course of the season? But before we do that, let's hear some words from our friends at DraftKings Pick6.
Here at RotoWire, we're proud to be partnered up with DraftKings Pick6 this NBA season. Think your team will score more than 100 points tonight? How about your favorite point guard making more than 4 3-pointers? Check out DraftKings Pick6, the newest way to play fantasy basketball and win cash with DraftKings. Here's how it works. All you got to do is pick 2 to 6 players of the same sport and choose if they'll have more or less of a given stat. So for hoops, we're talking points, assists, rebounds, etc. Lock in those picks, compete against opponents for your shot at huge cash prizes. Go download the new DraftKings Pick6 app right now and use our code ROTOPICK, ROTOPICK. That's code ROTOPICK for new Pick6 customers. Play $5, get $50 in Pick6 credits guaranteed. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick6 credits that expire in 30 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Thank you again to DraftKings Pick6 for sponsoring the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Now it's time to talk about 6 players who are off the hot starts and decide whether we want to sell high on them now or hold them. So first up, RJ Barrett of the Toronto Raptors. This is a guy that Kirien was high on heading into the season, so this is great for him. 26.2 points, 5.8 rebounds, 7.8 assists, and 2.8 3-pointers per game. He's shooting 44.4% from the field. That is down from 49.5% last season. However, his usage rate, 33.1%. Kirien, what are we doing with your guy, RJ Barrett?
I mean, we talked about it before when I mentioned him as a guy that I was high on. It's that he's one of these guys that's going to have strong production at the beginning of the season, and then it's probably going to taper off, and then the Raptors might start tanking. Well, the Raptors seem to be tanking to start the season with Scotty Barnes injured and Emmanuel Quigley sidelined. I think it's a fine line, right? Like I want to juice as much production as I can out of Barrett in the leagues that I have him before Barnes and Quigley come back. I think Barrett can still be productive, but what we're seeing right now is like elite stuff. So I want to like stack as many of those points as I can, but I'm definitely selling out feelers because this start is just unsustainable, right? So if a player in your league thinks that this is going to be Barrett's production all season, like you can definitely get a net increase in your value here, because look, Barrett's like he's flirting with 30 points, a double like every night. This just probably isn't sustainable, especially when Emmanuel Quigley, who doubtful yet again, comes back, and then Scotty Barnes comes back eventually in a month or so.
Yeah, I do think obviously this start is not sustainable, especially he's not going to average almost 8 assists a game.
No,
he is a very good passer, but he's not going to average 8 assists a game, especially when Quigley comes back and Barnes eventually. For me, I'm actually holding on to him right now, unless you get a stellar offer where you've really hit a home run, because I think we're going to get, we could get Quigley. He might be out for another week or so, but Barnes is going to be out a while. We could get another 3 to 4 weeks of really, really good production from Barrett. So I would at least hold on to him for a couple more weeks before you start floating out those trade offers. I do like RJ Barrett quite a bit. Now it's time for the second, 2 Bulls minutes in one podcast. Please don't turn us off. Nikola Vucevic is averaging 21.7 points, 10.9 rebounds, 3.7 assists, and 2.3 3-pointers. What you like about Vucevic, shooting 54.8% from the field, 48.5% from behind the arc. That's a big improvement. Last year, he only shot 29.4% from 3. That was more of an aberration from him compared to his season numbers. But what are we doing with Nikola Vucevic here, Kirien?
Yeah, I think you nailed it with the 3-point thing. If he's averaging 2.3 made 3-pointers per game, that's his highest mark since 2020-21. He, supposedly went through some offseason shooting changes. If you think he's going to continue this, you probably want to hold him. If you think he's going to revert back to what he was last season, you probably want to trade him now. He has 3 straight double-doubles, 6 on the season, including 4 with at least 20 points. He had season-high marks and assists and blocks in Monday's loss to Utah. So, he's doing everything right, which seemingly there's a lot of injuries to the center position. There's a lot of teams, fantasy managers that need centers. So maybe someone's desperate and they see this production, like, I can get this elite stud. I don't think I don't think that's going to stay. That was the reason why the Bulls made the trade for him, right? But that season that they traded for him, he was having his best career 3-point shooting season. So the Bulls made that trade to get this player they have for this 7-game stretch, but he hasn't been that player for the last 2 years. So I don't think we should really trust that. Definitely trying to trade him. Definitely think you should be looking at managers that are, in need of centers. Maybe they have Clint Capella, who's losing a little bit of a starting job, or Joel Embiid, who knows when he's going to play, hopefully next week. But there's definitely value for Vucevic out there right now just because of what he's been putting up.
This might surprise people. I am all in on holding Nikola Vucevic, and here's some reasons why. The Bulls are 3-4. They have the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. The East stinks. Yes, the Bulls stink. But we all know Jerry Reinsdorf loves those home play-in games. Oh, that extra paycheck from the home. He's going for it. The Bulls are going to try and at least make the play-in tournament. I don't think Vucevic is going anywhere. If they make a trade this season, I think it'll be LaVine. This team has no options at center. Jalen Smith is a decent backup, but he can't play 30 minutes a game. I think Vucevic is an easy 18 points and 10 rebounds a game guy. He's going to get you 3 assists a game, which is also very good. He's not going to make 2.3 3-pointers a game, but I think he's going to make at least 1.5. And he's going to shoot well over 50% from the field. I think he's not going to come anywhere near that 29.4% from 3 last season. I am keeping Vucevic. Now, I wouldn't try to trade for him because you'd be overpaying for him at this point. But if you have Vucevic, hold him. Hold him.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't mean to get too off track, but the Reinsdorf with the home playing games is absolutely hilarious. I saw a wild take that in college football, the fact that the top 4 teams get the bye and then the next 4 get to host a home game would kind of incentivize not getting a top 4 seed, so you could actually get all of that revenue. That's definitely something Reinsdorf would be like, hey, let's get that 5th seed so we could get a home game. Hopefully I didn't divert too much from there. But yeah, Vucevic, you're right. Like he is a super consistent player, even though the 3-point thing might be a mirage early in the season. He is super consistent. So if you aren't getting that overvalue or someone is desperate to trade for him, you probably want to hold him.
And I will finish up Vucevic before we move on to the next player with this. He has played at least 70 games in 4 straight seasons. Now let's go to another big man, Ivica Zubac of the Clippers. He is averaging 17.4 points, 13 rebounds, 2.7 assists. He's shooting 53.8% from the field. His usage rate is 22.1%. Now, Mike, that doesn't sound completely crazy. Last season, it was 16.4%. So he's gone up nearly 6 percentage points. Big difference here. He is averaging 35 minutes a game. Previously, he never averaged more than 29 minutes a game in a season. Kirien, what are you doing with Zubac?
Yeah, the minute thing is the biggest thing. 26.4 minutes last season. The season before that, almost 29, and that was a career high by a large margin. Currently at 35. Look, like you can rack up a lot of rebounds and get a lot of easy buckets from James Harden as your point guard in those extra 5-6 minutes. You got to love what you're getting from him right now, but you can't expect that all season. Another situation where like he's still a consistent guy. Like even if he comes down to back to that 15-16% usage and he's back to just being like a 14-point guy, 10 rebound, couple assists kind of guy, he's still productive, right? But right now you can probably trade him for a lot more than what he will revert back to. But again, it's what kind of return you're getting and how that fits with your team. But like right now with Harden, the way Harden's playing, like I don't really see like a huge drop until those minutes start to come down. And there's just, if he plays 35 plus minutes all season, like, and you trade him, you can blame me. You can call me out on Twitter. You can call me out in the chat. That's just not going to happen.
I actually want to keep Zubac simply because we've seen this team is James Harden, Norman Powell, and all guys that play defense. They do not have good scoring. Terrence Mann, he's had all these opportunities. He can't score. I mean, they don't have anyone who can score outside of those top 2 guys. Who knows if we're going to see Kawhi Leonard again this season? We might not. He might play 20 games. When he does play, he might only play 25 minutes a game. I don't know what to expect with Leonard. I have no expectations of him actually making a significant impact. I like Zubac because you probably didn't pay much in terms of draft capital to get him. I think he's going to at least approach a double-double every time he steps onto the floor. No, he's not going to continue to average 17.4 points a game. But could I see him averaging 15 points and 10 rebounds a game? Sure. If you can get someone to overpay, by all means do it. But he's not someone I'd be, he's off to a hot start. Let's see what I can get for him. Because I do think he can be someone who's consistently productive for the whole season. So now we're going to move on to Jalen Suggs of the Orlando Magic. He's averaging 17.6 points, 5.4 rebounds, 4.4 assists, 1.9 steals, and 2.53 pointers. That is fantasy gold right there. He is shooting 90% from the free throw line. That's a big improvement for him. He had never shot higher than 77.3% from the free throw line in his career. He is only shooting 44.3% from the field. However, usage rate last year, 19.7%. This year, 24.6%. Great defender. Now he's scoring. What do we think, Kirien?
Yeah, I was super high on Suggs coming into the season, mainly because I'm really high on the Magic. I think they can be real contenders, and I think Suggs is like a vital piece to this team. But this is getting weird for me. I don't really know what to think. More opportunity normally means more fantasy points, right? But in Suggs' case, like I don't really view him as like that Cade Cunningham, like I'm going to be the lead point guard, take over, get 10 assists, score 30 points. I more view him as like that Derek White guy that can hit threes when he's open, when other guys take, Paolo Banchero and Franz take the attention away from him. He can hit those threes. He can drop some dimes. and then focus on that defense and rack up those defensive stats where his fantasy production really skyrockets. But with Banchero out and Wagner missing like sometimes some games already this season, Suggs has been asked to do more, and we've seen some strong performances. We've also seen some pretty inefficient performances. I just don't really think that like he's the guy that like really is like, I'm going to shoot 25 times per game. And that's kind of why I liked him coming into the season, because he didn't need to do that to get fantasy production. So it's a weird spot for me. I think if you are in a category league and you're worried about field goal percentage, you talked about his free throw percentage, that probably will regress a little bit too, but specifically field goal percentage, like he could have some like 30% nights with the Magic struggling without Banchero. So that's like a little nerve wracking. And then with all of his attention focused on offense, trying to fill in for Banchero, maybe he doesn't rack up as many defensive stats because he's not as active on that end. So this is a little bit worrying for me. I mean, you probably didn't like have to invest too heavily into getting him. And right now, like he has value. And like I said, more opportunities needs more production, right? So like you can float that idea out to your league mates and be like, hey, look, Banchero's out. Suggs getting playing time. Trade for him. Come on. Don't be that desperate, but you get what I mean. It's a weird situation. I'm definitely trying to sell him if the right price comes along.
Yeah, I think with regards to Suggs here, if you drafted him for steals.
Yeah.
And he's giving you that. So that's a good thing. Everything else is a bonus with how far he's exceeded expectations. I don't mind chopping him. However, I don't think this is a Magic team that's looking to add a significant scorer at the trade deadline. They already made their big add in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's not going to be a usage rate guy. I think they like the young core that they have, and I don't think they're going to they might make a trade at the deadline, but I don't think it's going to be for a superstar that's going to take a significant amount of shots away. They like Jalen Suggs. He's emerging. I don't mind floating him out in trade offers, but if you don't get what you want back, don't feel any need to trade him. Now, let's move from a young player to an old fogey. I like the old fogies because I'm an old fogey myself. Chris Paul of the Spurs. He's averaging 12 points, 4.3 rebounds, 8.9 assists, just over a steal, and 2.3 three-pointers a game. He is shooting 50.8% from the field, just over 43% from three. What are we doing with the old guard, Chris Paul of the Spurs?
I mean, the biggest thing here is he hasn't played at least 70 regular season games since 2020, 2021. So, like, he's appeared in all of these games and he's playing well, especially over the last 4 games. But, like, I just don't really know how long or how many games we can expect him to play. We've talked a lot about if you're in that week-long setting and you plug and play your lineup for that week, he might miss a game or two, and that can really, be detrimental to your week. If you probably got Paul for pretty cheap, right? You probably got, like, similar to Suggs, you probably got him at the end of drafts for trying to get those assists. That he's going to give you those assists at the very least, so you can hold on to him if that's what you need. But if you need, if you have areas that you need help in, he can definitely be a trade piece. I'm sure there's plenty of old fogies like you called yourself out there that are like, oh, Chris Paul's back. He's got it again, and are willing to pay up a little bit more than what you paid for at the draft for him. So I think, like with all of these, being like analyzing trades is hard unless you know like exactly who's in the league and what your roster looks like, and all of the different rules and settings and whatnot. But like with all of these players mentioned, they're sell high candidates because they are outperforming what they did in the draft. And Paul is doing that immensely right now. The points are a huge surprise. He was getting the assist in Golden State last year, but he wasn't really scoring as much. So yeah, like if you only want the assist, just hold Paul. But if you need help elsewhere, like you can definitely get some value for him.
I'm putting a sign in my yard to sell Chris Paul. All offers welcome. He's 39 years old. He's averaging 30 minutes a game right now. Do we really think he's going to play 70 games and average 30 minutes a night as a 39-year-old? LeBron James is unique. Okay, these guys cannot play this much when they're that old. I would be selling Chris Paul. Now, you're not giving him away, but man, oh man, if you can find a guy or a gal in your league who needs a point guard and needs assists, fire those offers away. Send them 2, send them 3. Get Chris Paul off my fantasy team at sell high right now. We're going to finish things up with another point guard. He's not as old as Chris Paul, but he is a veteran. Dennis Schroder of the Brooklyn Nets, the 4-4 Brooklyn Nets, the playoff-bound Brooklyn Nets. No, I don't think so. Schroder is averaging 19.9 points, 3 rebounds, 7.3 assists, 1.4 steals, and 3.1 three-pointers a game. He is shooting 50.5% from the field and 49% from three. Kirien Schroder is cooking right now. What are we doing with him?
Yeah, the last thing, the 3-point thing is the main target for me. His career highs in those categories are 38.5% and 1.9 made threes per game, which both came in 2019, 2020 when he was playing for OKC. I think the counting stats are real, right? Like he's going to be a guy that has the ball in his hands a lot. Cam Thomas, Cameron Johnson, they're going to make threes when he dishes it to him in the corner. Schroder can score. Whenever Schroder puts on that German national team uniform, though, he turns into like Superman. That's not quite what we're seeing here, but he's still a really good player. I don't think that 3-point percentage is going to last. It's going to fall down a little bit, similar to all these Vooch and CP3. Like he is a consistent player. Like you will get some value from him even when that 3-point percentage drops. But right now, like his value is at an all-time high. Definitely worth sending out some trade offers. Yeah,
I think first of all, the Nets are going to be bad at some point, and they're going to be sellers. And I think Schroeder is a guy that playoff teams will want.
Yeah.
So my recommendation here is you hold Schroeder through 2024. As that calendar starts to get close to 2025 and makes the flip, that's when you try and sell him. You still got about a month and a half before the trade deadline. So maybe you can still sell someone on his great counting stats with the Nets. I would not be trading him right now. Like you said, the counting stats can be legitimate because there simply isn't many great options behind him. Ben Simmons is playing limited minutes. He's wrestling one half of a back-to-back. So I do like this for Schroeder. So now, Kirien, before we move on to one of our favorite segments of the week, or the favorite segment, why don't we answer 2 or 3 questions quickly in the chat? Pick out 2 or 3 for us to try and help the masses here.
All right. Mike Poole says, would you drop Trey Mann for Goga in a 9-cat 12s? I have Capella and he's not helping. Wendell Carter's probably, not going to play a bunch of games, but this current injury isn't necessarily like I'm going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks where you can plug and play Goga for, an extended period. Trey Mann is really good. So it's interesting. Obviously, if you need help at center, you need help at center, so you can make the move. But Goga is a short-term option for me. What about you?
I'd plug your nose and keep going through with Clint Capella. I would not drop Trey Mann. That's an easy one for me.
Yeah. We talked about Peyton Watson a little bit. One last thing that I would say, Christian, is that the defensive stats are going to be there, and playing alongside Jokic and Westbrook for that matter, he should get a lot of easy looks at the bucket. So field goal percentage, whatnot. Keontae George finally got hot. My take from last week's looking pretty bad, but
this is a good week. You liked him before the season, so between him and RJ Barrett, I like them are flying 3 weeks in.
I'm in the media, so I liked him before the season, and then I called him cold before, so I have all my bases covered, dog.
That's right.
Thanks for calling me out there. This is an interesting one. Is Trace Jackson Davis a drop? Depends on how big your league is. I think he's going to play a pretty sizable role in Golden State, and he's going to do, what he does, swing the ball, get dunks, play some defense. But it really depends on the size of your league. This is another interesting one. Drop Capella for Zach Edey. What do we think about these centers?
No, I think Capella, I think he's going to get traded at some point, and he's going to end up in a favorable position. Edey's just too inconsistent for me. I don't trust him on a game-to-game basis. I don't feel comfortable playing him on a game-to-game basis. So I would feel much more comfortable with Capella, even though this is not the Capella that we've seen of years past because of Okongwu's emergence.
Yeah, and look, this is another one. I called Zach Edey out last week, and he absolutely went off against the Nets. Very, very good game. Not going to take
anything against the Nets. Come on.
Not going to take anything away from him.
Come on.
Hold on. But Nick Claxton's playing like 25 minutes per game. Ben Simmons wasn't playing. Day'Ron Sharpe was out. Noah Clowney was out. They had and Trenton Watford was out. They had Dorian Finney-Smith playing center for a lot of the game. that's what Zach Edey should do because he's not playing against a legitimate center. He played against bigger guys in the Big Ten. So, not going to take anything away from him except the taking away things from him. One last one before we move on. We go past our extended time here. What do we think about Rui Hachimura? 30-plus minutes for the rest of the season?
I do. I think he's in a consistent role for the Lakers. They need him. They need his shooting. Do I trust him? No. Does he have potential? Yes. So if you have a roster spot to play with and you're not, I don't mind holding on to him and see what you get. If you do get a great trade offer for him, you can sell high, do it. But yeah, he's not a guy that I feel a whole lot of confidence in being valuable on a night in, night out basis.
Yeah, I think, his value would really skyrocket if LeBron misses time. And I do think he's one of their best 5, and I think he will see 30-plus minutes, but I'm not going to guarantee fantasy production. All right, 2 quick this or that's, and then we can move on.
Okay.
Ricochet or Peyton Watson?
Ricochet.
I agree. Christian Brown or Dyson Daniels tonight?
Daniels.
It's interesting because with Aaron Gordon out, I kind of wanted to lead Peyton Watson. With Aaron Gordon out, I kind of wanted to lead Christian Brown, but I think I'm rolling with the 2 Hogs. Ricochet's with all of the injuries, he's getting an extended look, and he just has that 3-point ball just gives him a little more upside than Peyton Watson. And I think Dyson Daniels is just like a little more of has a little more usage than Brown gets. I love Brown's intensity and his energy. But Dyson is kind of like he gets more opportunities on his team because he doesn't have to play with Nikola Jokic.
All right, it's time to call everybody into the room. What was that stat line of the week's coming up? But before we talk about that, let's talk about our friends at Vivid Seats. Finally, the NBA is back and court is in session. And to start the season, Vivid Seats is offering fans $20 off their first $200 purchase. Nothing beats seeing your favorite team hooping it up in front of thousands of cheering fans. Every slam dunk, every fast break, and every buzzer beater of your favorite team live and in person. Because Vivid Seats is the only leading ticket company with a rewards program, you can earn perks on every purchase, like amazing deals and unrivaled annual rewards all season long. Plus, with a 100% buyer guarantee, you can be sure your ticket will be as legit as your love for the game. VividSeats.com or visit VividSeats.com or download the app today and use promo code RotoWire for $20 off your first $200 purchase. That's promo code RotoWire, ROTOWIRE, for $20 off your first minimum $200 ticket purchase. Download the app or visit VividSeats.com. Vivid Seats, experience it live. Now, everybody is huddled around their computer and phone, and they're ready to go. Kirien, it's time. What was that stat line of the week?
So as mentioned earlier, it was a little bit of foreshadowing. The Warriors' playing time situation remains a mystery that only Steve Kerr knows. 6 players have played at least 30 minutes at least one time across 7 games. That list of 6 players includes Lindy Waters, Moses Moody, Buddy Hield, Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, Brandon Podziemski, but not Stephen Curry. What is that? Those 6 players have played 30-plus minutes a combined 10 times. Pods leads the way, reaching the 30-minute mark reaching the 30-minute mark 3 times. He's been dealing with a minor illness recently, but he's listed as available for tonight. Even with Curry sidelined for a few games, the Warriors are 6-1, so I doubt they change things up. But this is a complete mess for fantasy managers to sort out. Obviously, Curry is still putting up solid numbers when he's been in the lineup. But other than that, it's kind of like dart throws. Buddy Hield's going off some nights. Lindy Waters is going off. Jonathan Kuminga is stuck in that 25, 26-minute role. It's just a mess right now in Golden State, other than the fact that they're winning a bunch of games.
Now, you may have missed this while you were either A, taking your kids trick-or-treating, or B, handing out candy to your own neighborhood. On Halloween, Damian Lillard against the Grizzlies had 4 points, 2 rebounds, and 6 assists. He played 33 minutes. He shot 1 of 12 from the field, including 0 of 6 from behind the arc. What was that? Now, Lillard had 1 game last season in which he failed to score double-digit points. It was almost a year to the day. It was October 29th against the Hawks. He scored 6 points and shot 2 for 12 from the field. Maybe this is a Halloween thing. He's worried too much about costumes. I don't know. But the good thing is this was an outlier for Lillard. Overall, he's been very good this season. He scored at least 21 points in each of his other 6 games. He's shooting 45.2% from the field and 39.1% from 3. But man, 4 points in 33 minutes from Damian Lillard. What was that?
Exactly right. What is that? He came to Milwaukee so he wouldn't have to do everything, but they need more out of him, especially with Chris Middleton sidelined. But like you said, he's been pretty solid otherwise. And for fantasy, he's one of those guys where you can't drop him, you can't trade him. Like, you just got to roll with the punches with Damian Lillard, because when that night comes, when he hits 10 threes, you'll be like, wow, this is awesome.
Well, we made it through. We haven't received any messages that we did anything wrong yet. So we want to thank you for listening to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast, and thank you for DraftKings Pick6 for being one of our sponsors. This season, this week, this season and this week. But good luck this week. Kirien and I will be back with you next Wednesday to give you all the information that you need to win your fantasy basketball leagues.
Have a good one, guys.